Welcome to Café Diversity, our weekly conversation where we talk with people from around the world who have settled in Westman and Brandon, and people who connect our diverse cultures here and contribute to our global community. Café Diversity is brought to you by Westman Immigrant Services and Westman Communications Group, and I'm your host, Megan Miller-Cronkrite, Volunteer Coordinator with Westman Immigrant Services. Today we have a very special episode. We have Jaime Chinchilla, Cultural Diversity Facilitator with Westman Immigrant Services. And this is so special because Jaime has been the host of Café Diversity for several years, and today we get to hear his story and chat with him a little bit, so you're in the hot seat.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for being here, Megan. I'm a little bit sad and excited at the same time, and I'm leaving for a new opportunity. So. But I'm so glad that you're going to take over and continue doing this show. It's really important for the community.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what you have done in the community and with this program. To start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about your own personal story? So where are you from? What did you do there before you came to Canada?
Yes, well, I've said this story so many times, and but every time I say it, it brings emotions and all that. I came to Canada 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years. It was a very cold winter of January 2006, and I came to pursue my graduate studies at Brandon University. It's a very interesting story because I did my Bachelor of Music in Costa Rica, and I was performing, and but. Central America is actually a very limited region in terms of what you can do for your music career. It's, as so many other things in those countries, is underdeveloped. So you're always looking to the outside, to the rest of the world, and that happens in all fields. For example, if you need a piece of technology, you have to bring it from overseas. So almost everything is imported in Central America. And at the time I was wanting to continue my studies, you could not pursue graduate studies in so many other fields other than music, but music was mine. So I looked into different options. One of them being Brandon, and they offered me a really good opportunity of working at Brandon University to get me, which would give me a scholarship that really helped me to decide to come here.
Great. So you came here for school then with Brandon University.
Yes.
Great. And were you able to get started right away in the music industry in Brandon, or did you just pursue your studies at first?
For a few years I was just a student and another student. I was taking my classical piano master's. So you concentrated on studying 7-8 hours a day when you're not taking classes and learning English. But that scholarship they offered me, when I thought about it in Costa Rica, it was a lot of money. But when I came here and I saw the cost of living and how expensive tuition was and everything else, it wasn't that much. So right away I had to start working. Since this third month of being in Brandon, I was both a full-time student and working full-time. I did that at the Brandon University cafeteria and also at the Brandon University physical plant, where I was a cleaner during my whole years of studies.
Wow, so that would have been really challenging when first coming to Canada and adapting to the differences here, as well as all of those other responsibilities. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that process of adapting?
Yes, it is. I always joke and I say I came here because my sister, she was studying already here. She lied to me. She said it wasn't too cold, and but that's not true. It's just a joke. But yeah, you come here. First time you're walking in the snow. First time you've seen these temperatures. I did an English test called the TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language. For a lot of students do it. It's one of the options you have to. And I passed it, and I passed it at the graduate level. But when I came here, took my first class, I couldn't understand a word. I had to buy a little recorder and record classes, and after the class I would listen to it 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and then until I would feel comfortable. So yes, you're adapting on every aspect of your life, and of course, when I came here, I didn't think, I thought I'm going to do my degree and then I'm going to go back home and find a really good, job or do really good. But there are so many other factors that play into that, that I ended up staying, and it's been up to today, after 10 years, I still think I'm not adapted in so many ways. Still miss a lot of different things from Costa Rica, and from your own, back home. Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they think about that cultural adaptation, the first thing they think about is the language, which you mentioned was really challenging. What are some other differences that you noticed that you had trouble adapting to different cultural differences?
I would say everything, right? I remember I came to board with a family. One of, I still care about that experience because a beautiful family. They took care of me as if I was their family member, and it was they did everything they would do as a family who has boarding students and more, right? They would do anything for me, and even though it was really, really difficult. Like the first day you wake up and you have a table with a breakfast and you haven't tried any of the things that are on the table. And of course I'm not a picky person. I eat everything, but still it was very strange. And so every other thing that you encounter is going to be like that. How people say hello is so different from back home. How people react to what you say. How people look at you. How people, so everything, it's permeated by culture, and sometimes we don't realize that when we are in our own pond, right? When we are immersed in our own culture, it's hard to realize. You have to go and live for a while in a different culture, and then you'll start noticing that everything is permeated by culture, and everything is formed by our cultural perspectives.
Great. So you finished your master's then at Brandon University,
yes.
And then where did you go? What was your next step after that?
That's a really good question. In the middle of my studies, I was, and I always think I was in a very special moment for Brandon. I was in a moment where immigration from Latin America and other countries was on its peak. Maple leaf foods, the plant that we have in Brandon, they were bringing a lot of immigrants at the time. And there was a few people like me who would be in a position to help. Not because I'm a special person or anything like that. I'm like everybody else, but I was privileged in that I had the language. Even with my broken English, I had better language than a lot of the people that were coming to work in Brandon. So I found myself helping in so many ways, interpreting, accompanying people to appointments and all of that. And I learned a lot out of that experience. At the time, Westman Immigrant Services, our amazing agency we have today in Brandon that helps immigrants settle, they were a much smaller agency, and the growing number of immigrants was challenging, and so I would be getting calls and requests for help all times, to the point that I had to start telling people I can't do this at all hours, where I have my responsibilities and all that. But I didn't know all that experience and all that knowledge I was learning from them and from the community was going to help me later for my job until today, and a few more days with Westman Immigrant Services. So I started being involved in the community right away. In that sense, there was something really interesting too. A lot of people. All of the people that are immigrating, regardless of their educational background or the country they come from or the language, they're all going to be going through that cultural adaptation. And when you are in the period of a culture shock, you miss and you care for your own culture, sometimes in an exaggerated way. You think your culture is better, you miss so much, and you think things here are not good enough. One of those things is music. and I was studying music. And when I started relating to all these immigrants from Latin America, something clicked, right? I thought, yeah, we're getting together, and there's always music. We missed our music so much. And so we started just playing and jamming together and all of that. And we only needed to do that a couple of weeks to come up with the idea of turning it into a regular thing. So we would do it every weekend, get together and play our music until we got the police, of course, coming to the backyard and saying, "You guys can't do this. You cannot play these drums all day," and because so all that pushed us to find ways to do it more comfortably, more professional, if you want. So we looked for a place to rehearse, and when we did that for a few months, we thought we should show this to the rest of our fellow immigrants from Latin America, newcomers. They will love it. They will dance until they die. And so I remember I called the North 40, and she and it's interesting because last couple of weeks Heidi Howard, who was the person that gave us the opportunity to play, she handed the 40 finally. She sold the place to a different owner, but that's a good memory to have. She gave us the opportunity, and I think neither her or us or anybody else thought that it was going to be like that. The place was packed, and there was no room for a fly, and that's just the first time. After that, it was always really good, but that's the other side. I started a band that way with the help of everybody in the community, and with years, it became from being that community orientated group to something more professional, to what it is today.
Wow, so it sounds like music has really played a huge part in your life, from coming to Canada to healing through that kind of culture shock and helping others in the community, and now onto more professional, and what's next with that then?
Well, we for a number of years the band was called Son Latino Band. As I said, it grew from being a community group orchestra to be a more professional group. During the summer we tour Western Canada. We go to Saskatoon, Calgary, Edmonton, of course Winnipeg, and so many other places. Recently we changed our name, and it's called now the Indestructible Latin Band, and there's a story behind that, because there is a tune that is on the real book of jazz. It's a really important book that jazz musicians use. The only salsa tune that's on that book is called Indestructible, and so we thought we should call our band that, because the word is spelled the same in English, French, and Spanish. So we're still going with the project. I think when you get that response every time we play, people get up and dance automatically. You can't help it. And you're doing that a very important contribution, right, of allowing people to understand each other through music, through the experience of just dancing or just singing along, and so I think we cannot stop doing something like that when we get that kind of response. So that's going to continue for sure. And I think the reason you're asking is because it's the same reason you're doing the show today, right? I don't want to get there because as I said before, it's a little bit sad too, but I'm leaving Brandon, and I'm leaving this community in a few weeks to work in Winnipeg for a new job that I accepted there, a new challenge in my life. So, but I think the band is one of the things that's going to keep me connected to Brandon, no matter what, until people stop liking it, and I don't think that's
Yeah, no, that's great. That I definitely agree that music has that power to bring the community together, and that's one of the ways that we can connect diverse cultures in Brandon. So that's incredible. I'm glad that that's not going to be going anywhere, even though you are moving on a little bit. That'll stay in the community. So to talk about you leaving a little bit, why don't we start with what you are doing right now with Westman Immigrant Services, so as the cultural diversity facilitator? And
it happens to everybody. Usually your job is connected to your life because it's something you choose to do, right? Well, I like to think that that's the case for a lot of people. Unfortunately, it's not for a lot of people in the world, but I'm one of those privileged people. I started working with my band, and all of a sudden I was creating events in the community because I wanted my band to be shown, to be, to have performance opportunities and people to see my band. So I started creating free events at the park, community events at the community centers, concerts, cultural nights, evenings with some of them would involve food, some of film, dance, and so I started doing all these cultural events. With time, and that's why I say everything is connected, right? There was an opening to work as a settlement assistant with Westman Immigrant Services, and I inquired about the job, and it was about helping people, going with them to appointments, helping them register to different services, and I thought to myself, I do this every day. How about if I could do it for a little bit of payment? It would really help me. So I applied and I got that job, and I started working at Westman Immigrant Services as a settlement assistant. With time, I became full-time, and when the community grew and the need for basic settlement was met for a lot of people, there was, I like to think, another layer of need, and that is when people coming from other side of the world need to settle, not only in terms of the basic needs, but also culturally, merged and get accepted and accept each other and create a new multicultural community. And so at Westman Immigrant Services, they created this cultural diversity position to meet all this, and it was about creating events and creating opportunities for people to share their culture and all of that. And again, it was something I was already doing voluntarily and because of my band, etc. So I started that position in 2010. No, sorry, 2012. 2010 was when I first started working with Westman Immigrant Services, and that's what it entails. It's about creating cultural events, trainings about cultural diversity in the workplace, opportunities for people to meet each other and know more about their cultures. And as I said, with the goal of going through deeper levels of understanding, not just about the surface, because I came to understand that it's easy to like music and food, right? But maybe not so easy to understand why people behave the way they do, why they have different uses and customs. And so we need to get there at some point, and that's what my position at Westman Immigrant Services is, or was until this week, when my last day will be on Friday.
So why do you think that's important in Brandon? Why is there a need for us to promote this cultural diversity and that cultural understanding?
We live in a globalized society, and what that means is we have access to information in a way that we never had before. From the 90s and the advent, the internet and all of that, the communications era. We have more and more information and connection, but if you are on Facebook every day looking at what's going on in China, it doesn't mean you understand all the sides, all the factors, everything that's involved in their culture and their country. I think in the same way, the fact that we live together in our community and we see each other every day and we go shopping and we go to different events doesn't necessarily mean that we are understanding each other better, that we are aware of all the aspects of the culture. And if you think about big cities such as Los Angeles, New York, that have gone through the same process, Toronto, for example, it hasn't been easy, right? People tend to get into their own cultural ghettos. I go home and my friends all speak Spanish. They all come from Latin America. I tend to go to them during the weekends every time I go out, and you would do the same. It's just natural, right? It's your family, your friends, your circles. But if you're living in the same community and you're interacting in so many other ways, it will be only beneficial to know more and to understand each other, because at some point you will have to anyways, right? And if you're not prepared, a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of discrimination and racism can come unexpectedly, in subtle ways. And that's what you want to avoid when you are creating a community like this. Right? So you are different factors make people come to Canada, and the Canadian economy itself, the problems in economy in other countries, family issues, etc. But now we cannot help it. We need to do something about it and create a very harmonious and beautiful community. And don't wait until those problems arise. That's the idea of cultural diversity facilitation, I think. Get ahead of the game and project ways of providing those spaces to people.
Right, yeah, a space for people to become familiar with the unfamiliar and bridging those cultural gaps. That's great. So you talked about a few cultural events that you've been involved in or organizing. Are there other things in the community that you've been up to related to cultural diversity or music?
Yes, well, some of the events I did from my position were world cooking lessons, and the idea came from the International Women's Food and Craft Market. People were so into food and crafts and all that. So together with other partners, we created the World Cooking Lessons, and people could come and meet people from other cultures and at the same time cook and eat. We created the Multicultural Summer Festival that used to happen every summer until the funds got cut for that festival. We created the cultural diversity training, which is still available, and employers can get or can hire to bring a trainer to their workplaces to train staff and human resource people about what it is to have culturally diverse people and how to promote, maintain, and get the most out of your diverse workforce. We created cultural cafes, which were spaces where people could come and talk about culture and hear about experiences of newcomers that had settled in Brandon, and so many other events. That's from my position, but I was always active in the community. I was part of the first ever Brandon Police Service Board as the provincial appointee, and I was very glad that they had this idea of we should make this an inclusive board. So there was someone from the Aboriginal community, someone from the immigrant community, and so on. I was very privileged. I should say I am, because I still haven't resigned to the board, but I will have to do that very soon as I'm moving to another city. So I did that voluntarily, as well as member of the board of something called, this is a long name, Manitoba Alliance for Heritage and International Language Education, which has the goal of trying to keep the mother tongues of newcomers, so they don't lose that part of the culture, and finding ways to make that possible through education. I was always organizing events on the music side of things, so always involved in festivals and concerts and all that. So, yeah. Great.
So, do you find that there's some challenge in continuing with those events? Like you had mentioned that some funding has been cut with events in the past. Do you think that's an ongoing thing, or do you think that there is support for these kind of events in Brandon?
There's a lot of factors that play into that. When you create an event, your goal is to try to make it independent and self-sufficient, and that's not always that easy. But so you will be depending on public funding for a few years at least, and I think it's natural. It's just the way it is with changes in government and administration. Sometimes things change, and you have to be prepared to either find alternatives or find different events that you can create with the new conditions. So. I like to think that people consider, like me, culture and education and music is very important, but that's not the case for everybody, and maybe for every administration in the world, every government. So we have to live with that. I'm used to it, being an artist and being a cultural worker. So it's the way it is. But yeah, I definitely feel that during the last few years, there's maybe a little bit less support for cultural activities in Brandon, and that's one of the reasons made me look for opportunities somewhere else to move my working and cultural life. And for the moment, it seems that that's going to be Winnipeg.
Great. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about that and the next adventure that you have ahead?
For a number of years, I've been working at Westman Immigrant Services. It's probably the best experience I've had in terms of work. It's been a wonderful place because I never had any problem with anybody. Everyone is so nice, and everyone works in harmony, and that's very rare when you think about it. I had the chance to learn a lot. I started, as I said, just because I used to help people in the community, and I came out as an expert in cultural diversity. I had so many professional development opportunities, flexibility, support from my supervisors, and mentorship. All those things allowed me to apply for a new position. At least the one I got, it's the program coordinator for the diversity and intercultural training at Manitoba Start, which is a very exciting and challenging opportunity for me. But as I said, I have to be really thankful and have a lot of gratitude for Westman Immigrant Services, Brandon, the community in general, because they taught me so much that now I can go out and do what I'm hoping to do in Winnipeg.
That's great. So you're hoping to take everything that you've learned here in Brandon and the experience that you've had and with events and the training and that cultural diversity and explore more options in Winnipeg and take more to Winnipeg. That's great.
Of course.
I'm sure Manitoba Start is very happy to have you. We're very sad that you'll be leaving us, but at the same time we're very happy for you. And anything else that you'd like to add or chat about before we go?
No, I just want to say about this last comment of yours. It's actually just partially true. When you leave a place that you love, that you had good times, such when I left my country, you never leave it forever, right? You're always connected, and you're always bringing back and coming back, and I expect to be able to do that in Brandon, bring new music opportunities, cultural opportunities, training opportunities, from all the things that I hope to build and be part of in Winnipeg. So I don't see myself leaving Brandon for good. I'll just move my work and my everyday life, but I'll always be connected to this place and to Westman Immigrant Services too. So I foresee a lot of relationships and communication to continue.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for the work that you've done in the community and with Westman Immigrant Services, Café Diversity. We've been very happy to have your contributions, and thank you for coming today. We're always happy to chat with people in Brandon who are connecting diverse cultures in the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time on Café Diversity.